Hello, everyone. I hope everyone is enjoying the snow days and the snow. If you're like me, I think that I've had the snow. Now I'm ready for it to go away and us to have some warmer weather. But unfortunately, the groundhog saw his shadow. So they're saying 6 more weeks of winter. So we'll see what happens. But nonetheless, I am glad that we are hopefully going to be back on a regular schedule. We will see. Even if we are, out for snow, just please always be checking your email, logging into the course and into eLearn to see that you are keeping up with the expectations for your assignments in the course. So I know this video is a week late, but with all the snow and everything that's been happening, I didn't get a chance to get this out to you last week. But we are going to be walking through the three main course projects that you have to complete. The first one we're going to talk about a little bit, not spend a lot of time because we've already started this process, is going to be service learning. So service learning is required for this class. Each student is going to complete 12 hours of service learning in this course. Now, since this is a special education course for exceptional learners, you will be placed in a either resource room or a CDC classroom. Now, if you do not complete 12 hours of service learning, you will not pass this course. So it is a requirement in order to pass. The other two projects we're going to get into as well is something that you will be doing, which is going to be a co-teaching lesson plan and presentation. And then the third one is what we call a choice based. I'm giving you a choice for your third project. There is a list here. You're going to choose one of these to complete for your choice based project, and we'll get into that in just a little bit. So let's first start with service learning. Now, again, to access all of this information, which you should have seen when you read through the Getting Started module the first week of classes, is if you click on Course Information tab and select Content, under the table of contents, you're going to see a section that is called Course Projects and Service Learning, which is where we are now. So let's start with service learning. By now, you should have joined a team. Okay, so when you first click on the service learning module, it's going to bring up a summary, an introduction to what service learning is. So you will read it. Again, you will have to use the table of contents to navigate. I like to do it this way instead of scrolling because if you'll notice when you scroll, sometimes it may only give you some of the information. If you click each section as you go through it, you know you're going to not miss anything. Um, so just keep that in mind. So once you read the introduction to service learning, then you will go to what it is. It will tell you all about it. So I'm not going to get into that too much. What I am going to tell you is in order to complete service learning, you have to not only complete the required paperwork, there is a TBI background, which stands for Tennessee Bureau of Investigations. You will have to get a background check done and completed. And then you will also have to purchase what we call liability insurance. Okay, so this protects you when you're in the classroom. Now, for liability insurance, you do have two choices. You could either purchase Aon, which is offered by Walter State, which is the cheaper option, or you can do STA and join that membership, which is Student Tennessee Education Association underneath TEA. And that will be able to cover you for your liability insurance. So you do have to have that in addition to your paperwork. Okay. Now, if you go through, it's going to tell you all the school systems or sites, as we call them, because some of them are not school systems. You'll see here we've got Douglas Cherokee Economic Authority, Lakeway Christian, Alpha Baptist Christian Learning Center. So we have lots of MOUs in place. So these are the approved sites or school systems in which you can choose on your application. Okay. Now, as you see, it'll walk through, well, service learning, what do I do first? You need to join with a team code. Okay, this is the team code. It's going to show you how to join. There's a video here showing you how to join, but there's also a link to a document that is going to walk you through how do you upload a document and submit it to the team. Now, there is a checklist which I always tell students to look at because it lets you know the due dates of the required documentation that should be submitted to the team. So you're thinking, why do I have to submit this to the team? Well, the reason is because we have what we call a service learning coordinator. Jessica Mills is our service learning coordinator, and she does not have access to our course. With that being said, she wants you to submit your stuff to Teams. That way, she can go through it. And once all of the required documentation, your background check with no indicators comes back, and you purchase liability insurance, then she can move forward with your placement. So just make sure that you read through that as well. Now, if you'll scroll down under this section, it's going to give you a list of all of the documentation that you need. So the first thing that you always need to look at under this section is your service learning timetable and checklist. Again, I told you that's important because you're going to see the dates that things need to be submitted into the team by. So the first order of business of what you should have done is I've started your background check and purchasing your liability insurance, also completing your service learning application. Now, this was due on January 29th, but if you haven't done it, please make sure you go ahead and submit it. We have something called the service learning hold harmless acknowledgement of risk. It means that you know when you're going to a classroom, you are working with students, and there are situations that might arise. You are having to sign this, stating you understand that there could be a risk always. So you need to complete that. That's due February 5th. You have to do your proof of liability insurance and purchase this by February 12th. You have your VECHS, which we call VEX form. Now, this is tied to your background check. So this form is just stating that you give us permission that we will get your results back if you've already had one in the past. You will also see here that once we have your background check with no indicators, your liability insurance, and these forms here, and it's all complete, the service learning coordinator will reach out to the school. I will then, when she gets back to me, the service learning coordinator, I will then contact you saying your service learning placement has been approved. And I will have you reach out to the specific person that you're supposed to. And then with that, I will also give you the learning referral confirmation form. Now, the service learning referral confirmation form is just a form that the principal and the mentor teacher you're placed with will complete and sign saying that they agree to have you in their classroom. So it's just written documentation for us. Um, and then that will be submitted back to team. Now, once you have submitted that to team, I will give you the green light to begin your hours. So just because I email you saying your service learning placement hasn't been approved and please make contact, that doesn't mean that you get to start your hours. You cannot begin your hours and get the green light until I have that referral confirmation form submitted to teams. So just make sure that you keep that in mind. Now, let's get back to where we were. So that's the first things you have to do. Um, so that all of the paperwork you have to complete is going to be underneath the section that says service learning. What do I do first? Then it says pre-service learning documentation, application, background check, referral form. So you'll click on that. The next thing is once you're in the classroom and you're getting started, you started your hours. Now, what do you need to do? So you will be keeping what we call a reflection journal. So this is going to allow you to document your experience, right? Um, so you will keep a service learning journal here. Now there is a rubric because the journal is graded. It's what we call a written assignment. So please make sure that you click on it and you also click on the rubric to see how you're going to be graded and what the expectations are. And whenever you click on documents in the course, sometimes it may take a while to load the document. Please um, don't let that fool you. It is coming up. So you'll see here, it goes through and walks you through why this is going to help you, the guidelines of how I want it completed. It needs to be APA format. You need to use a readable, accessible text or font, which is going to be the Times New Roman 12 point. You do have to have a cover page, so you're using APA format. It tells you the purpose, what are the requirements, right? And before you begin service learning, you will answer these questions. Now, Think of your service learning as writing paragraphs, right? You're documenting, so you still need to keep that same APA format. So you'll see here, I even put directions in here. So please read the instructions. In one paragraph, you're going to answer these questions. So I want it in paragraph form. And then for each day that you are there, for each day you complete service learning, you will write paragraphs discussing these questions. Now remember, I want you to focus on these questions. They're here to guide you, but I don't want you to answer them individually, like a short answer or you're answering a question. I want you to focus on what was the most meaningful part or experience of that day. And these here are just to guide you. If there's something that is a significant moment and you want to capture it, focus on that and write about it, right? And then at the end of your service learning experience, you're going to do a conclusion paragraph, answering these questions or addressing these questions. Again, at the bottom, I give you the submission format, like double check that this is how your paper is formatted or your journal is formatted. And then again, I told you I do have a rubric. The rubric is what I use to grade your service learning journal. So please make sure that you look at that. And again, it takes a moment to pull up, so just be patient. It will come. So you'll see here, I break it down into different criteria, and then I tell you how much each section is worth. So you got the prologue, daily journal completion, so each time that you're there. And this will match your log hours, your reflection, experiential learning, connections to course and future practice, and then your service learning log documentation, like I mentioned earlier, that the documented hours do match with what you put as far as dates in your journal. So please make sure those match up. Okay, so that's what you do once you start it. Now, when you complete your hours, you will do something else. You will complete what we call a written analysis. Okay, so what you're going to do is click on closing documents. Okay, this needs to be completed by your mentor teacher. So whoever was the person that you were with and they were your mentor teacher, you're going to give this to them. Okay, so maybe sometime before you finish your hours, have this to them because if you see here, they're going to evaluate you. Okay, so they will have to download this. You may email this to them and they're going to complete this and they're going to email it to either myself or the service learning coordinator. It doesn't matter. And then they're also going to have this log. Now, if you'll look at this log, you'll see it shows service learning log. You got to put your name. All this part has to be filled out. The agency is the school or the site. Who's the supervisor? The student's name, the log, and then you're going to date, time, how many hours each time you go. What were your responsibilities? You will initial, and then your mentor teacher will initial. Okay. And if you're at a site that's not a regular school system, say early child care center, whoever is the supervisor there can initial it, but we mainly want it to be the person who's your mentor filling it out. So you do the closing, or they will do the closing documents. And then what you also will see here is that there is a paper, what we call a service learning analytical paper or written analysis. And what you're going to do is you're going to write about your experience. Now, your journal was keeping up with your experience, but we want you to put it all together in a paper or analytical paper. So you could use your journal to help you, which sometimes we sleep, after we've gotten, so maybe some time has passed between your hours and when you actually write this paper. But again, just like the format of your journal, there is a specific format I want you to use in this paper. So for instance, it's still going to be APA format, still 1-inch margins, still 12-point Times New Roman font. But I do want you to look here that you are going to have different sections and they need to be in paragraph form, okay? And I tell you how I want you to number each section. and I give you the guidelines. So make sure that you're looking at these focusing questions to guide you and that you're answering them when you are writing your paper. Okay, so within this, what am I looking for in each section? So for section 1, obviously this is going to be your introduction. We want to get a picture of your placement, of what kind of classroom it was. Then we're going to move on to high impact practices, right? So this course for service learning is a high impact practice. So when we talk about high impact practices, we're looking at different things such as collaboration, assessment, social emotional behavior practices, and we also look at instruction. So we're going to see what those high impact practices look like in your classroom that you were at or in. Then we do our closing reflection, right? And again, I give you questions to include and think about. Okay, and then lastly, you will be looking at, okay, revisiting your prologue. Remember what you did before you started your experience, like what were your expectations? Were they met? And I want you to also look at the impact this has made on you, right? Your thinking and learning, your future decisions as your own classroom teacher, and then what was your contribution to the community? And then what conclusions did you draw? Okay, so all the format is there. Again, it does have to have a cover page, and I want it to be centered, and this is what your cover page should kind of entail. Okay, and that will be put into the Dropbox. So one thing I do want to note is up to this whole point that you've been doing the paperwork, all of it has went into Teams. Once you begin your hours, right, then things have to start getting submitted to our class Dropbox. So the paper and the journal will be put into the class Dropbox in our course, and then your final evaluation and your log will get emailed to myself or Mrs. Mills, Professor Mills. So just keep that in mind. I know it's a little bit confusing, but if you have questions, you can go back and read or you can ask me. Okay, so that's the first one. The second one is going to be your co-teaching. So again, the best way to navigate through the projects is by clicking the left side table of contents. So the co-teaching, I do have a video here for you. It's helpful to watch it because it kind of explains what it is. Um, but what you're going to do is you're going to choose, and normally if we're in person, you will have a partner. Now, I still offer that as a choice for online students. For web courses, you can work alone or you can work with a partner. Now, keep in mind that with you, where we're not in class, we're not going to be able to work together in person. But if you do want to have a partner, because that's what co-teaching is, working with someone, you can do that, but you will just have to work it out with your schedule. But the day and time that we live in, you have Teams, you have Zoom, you have FaceTime. Um, you can meet in person, you can talk over the phone, send documents back and forth, share documents. So there's ways to get around it if you want to have a partner. Now, if you don't have a partner, keep in mind that you still will be required in the lesson plan to do 2 parts. Okay, because you will be doing what your part would be, and then if you were working with someone, you would have their part. So it walks you through it. When we're talking about co-teaching, co-teachers they team teach together. And what they use is they use evidence-based strategies, okay? And you're going to have to choose one strategy that you would like to implement and teach. And you're going to use that strategy and teach pre-service teachers like ourselves how would they use this strategy in their own classroom. So just to preface, this is not an assignment that you're doing to teach a lesson plan to a student. It's like you're putting a professional development on for us teachers, and you're teaching us about a strategy we can use in our own classroom. You will also think about what kind of co-teaching models you will use. So when you team teach, there's different models you can use. Okay. So I do have the models here that will give you a better explanation and visually see what does one teach, one observe look like? What does station teaching look like when you're co-teaching? What does parallel teaching look like? What is alternative teaching? What is team teaching? So all these models, you're going to see what they look like. So watch these videos because it's really going to help you pick which approach you want to use with your co-teaching. Okay. If you click on co-teaching lesson plan and instruction, you're going to see those strategies I talked about. Now, your goal is to create a lesson plan or like a professional development for us and put together a presentation that teaches us about the strategies. Now, you're only going to select one of these evidence-based strategy. Now, I would like you to email me as soon as possible. Let's say email me your strategy by February 12th. Okay, I know it said the 2nd, but because of snow and delay, we'll say the 12th. So by the 12th, I want you to email me what strategy you choose and if you're working alone or with a partner. So you can just email me and eLearn. Okay, so here are the strategies you can pick from. Graphic organizers, schema instruction. We have repeated readings, which is like fluency. Peer mediated support, multisensory instruction. Visual support cues, self-monitoring, mnemonic strategies, activate prior knowledge, task analysis, or pre-teaching vocabulary. Okay, so what you're going to do is once you choose your strategy, you're going to research that strategy. And then you're going to design your co-teaching lesson plan. Now, the lesson plan needs to be at least 30 minutes, okay? Remember, it's like a professional development. You're teaching us how to use this strategy in our own future classrooms. And you do need to include at least 2 co-teaching models. Remember the team teaching, parallel teaching, station teaching. You're going to pick 2 of those. Refer to the videos, right? Um, and then start preparing your lesson materials. What would you use to help teach us about this strategy? And then you would create a PowerPoint. Now, you don't have to be limited to PowerPoint. I know there's Canva, the Google Slides. There's different things that you can do to create a presentation. I'm not really hung up on if it is going to be from PowerPoint specifically. You can use whatever tool that you want to. If you do, when you have to submit it, please don't put it as a PDF because I want to make sure there's not any corrections that need to be made. And that is correct. Now, if you'll scroll down, you're going to see I do give you the rubric and how I'm going to grade the co-teaching assignment. um, I give you the actual lesson plan form that you're going to be using. Okay. I also give you an example lesson plan from a student and then an example of a presentation. So you're going to see what the expectations are and what I'm looking for. So please make sure that you're looking at that. So when you click on the lesson plan form, it's going to open in a new window and you're going to see the different parts. Okay, you put your name, and if you're working the partner, you'd put both your names. If you're doing this alone, can just make up a name, it doesn't matter. But you will check 2 of these sections. These are your co-teaching models. Now, your topic or lesson is going to be your strategy, right? What you're going to be doing. Um, this is basically the same thing. So you don't really need to put there. You can put it twice if you want. Where it says subject strategies, I don't really care if you fill that out, but you do need to put the topic, which is your evidence-based strategy, the date, and in-task standards. Now, in-task standards are teacher preparation standards for pre-service teachers. So you need to pick at least one standard. What will your outcomes be? So what will we be able to do when we're done with the lesson? What kind of materials? So this could be handouts or any kind of attachments need to be included here. The vocabulary related to your strategy. And then you're going to break down each lesson component. So in the lesson components, you've got your anticipatory set, which is like your hook, your opening of the lesson. You'll have your lesson activities, the closure, and then how we're going to be assessed and any questions that you want to ask us related to see that we have understanding of the strategy. Okay. Now, think of this lesson plan as a sandwich. You got your anticipatory set, which is your top bun, your bottom bun is your closure. Everything in between is the meats, right? The big part of it. Now, you are going to have to do 2 roles, meaning that you need to make sure that each teacher has an adequate responsibility within this lesson. Okay, so you both are doing different things. You're like, well, how do I know what to do? Well, it's really going to depend on what kind of co-teaching approach are you using. If you're focusing on station teaching during this lesson activity section, then you need to put that and what will that person be doing? What will each teacher be doing during station teaching? Or if you're doing alternative teaching, what will each person be responsible for doing? Remember, you're trying to teach us how to use this strategy for our students. Then you will have again those examples and then the rubric. The rubric is just going to break down how I'm going to grade you. Now you'll see the rubric is divided into two sections. You get possible 40 points for this assignment or this project. So 20 points for the lesson plan and 20 for the presentation. I do tell you the criteria of what I'm looking for each section. So please make sure you review that. Now, underneath this section, I told you there's the in-task standards, which need to be included in your lesson plan. And then I also include a research-based instruction video. The librarian had updated this. This is going to help you with your research. So just make sure that you watch that video because I feel like it's very helpful. Okay. All right, so that's going to be your co-teaching assignment. So we covered service learning, we covered co-teaching. Now we're going to look at the choice-based project. The choice-based project is where you get to choose one of the course assignments below. So your choice is you can do an interview. So you're going to interview a child who has, you're going to interview a parent who has a child with special needs. You're going to do a peer-reviewed journal article report from an article in Teaching Exceptional Children. Or you're going to do what we call a work-based learning project. Okay, so let's look at them very quickly so this video don't get much longer. For the interview, again, like I said, you're going to be interviewing a parent who has a child with special needs. A lot of people choose this. They learn a lot actually, but I want you to choose the one that speaks to you, the one that you feel you would get the most out of. So for the interview, the purpose is really to understand the parent's perspective of raising a child who may have disabilities. Okay. You're going to hopefully gain insights and maybe even change your perspective as a future educator. So here I break down kind of what I'm looking for on this assignment, like what will your tasks be? Obviously, you're conducting an interview. You're going to use provided interview questions and have additional questions of your own that you will come up with. You're going to document it using transcript with questions and answers, and then you're going to also be required to do a reflection. Okay. Now, the interview requirements are here. The parent must have a child who is the guardian or parent, and they have to have an IEP, which is like an individualized education plan or individualized education program within a school system. The person you interview cannot be related to you. Okay, now it could be friends from church, it could be friends of the family, it could be someone you work with, but it cannot be a family member. It tells you kind of like how you can conduct the interview. It could be over the phone, in person, Zoom. It really doesn't matter. In person too is fine. But just make sure that you have permission to ask these questions and let them know that you're using it for coursework. Um, and then here are the interview questions that you're going to ask. And again, you can actually ask additional questions, which you can get credit for. I do want to note that if you just include these questions here alone, that will only give you a grade of a B. If you want higher than that, you're going to have to create additional questions. And that is broken down into the rubric of how I'm going to grade you. And then again, like I said, you're going to be writing a reflection at the end in a paragraph form, answering these questions here. So that is the parent interview. The next one you can do is what we call a journal article report. And this is where you are going to be choosing a article from the journal called Teaching Exceptional Children. And you're going to focus on a special education topic that interests you. So as long as it's from this journal specifically, you can pick whatever article you'd like. Just ensure that the article is current, which is like within the last 5 to 10 years, and make sure that you are citing the journal because I need to make sure that it actually is a journal that you can use, like it's current and it comes from the journal I expect. So here's an example of how you would cite it. And remember, the citation needs to go at the top of the paper. This helps me locate it right away before I start grading it. This is the format. The review needs to be 2 to 3 pages. You need to use 1.5 line spacing. I want the font to be 12 points, use Times New Roman, and it needs to be in the Word format. Now, I did lay out the structure of how I want it to be formatted. You will label it by sections, okay? So you need to have a header, so your name, your course name, and date. So this is going to be at the top. Please use your APA reference citation up here at the top. Um, Explain. The third thing you're going to do is explain the summary of the article in your own words. Then you're going to identify and discuss 4 significant key points, right? Describe why each one is important to the article and how it's relevant to you, an educator in the classroom. Then you're going to critique it, or you're going to share your perspective on the article. Like, did you agree? Did you disagree? Any kind of connections you can make with life experiences, any kind of research you can use to support your critique. Please use direct quotes and cite as needed. And then you're going to do application where you describe 2 ways in which this is going to help you in your future classroom as an educator or improve your student learning as you go through your education program. So the peer review journal article, there is a screen pal here that talks again. The library created this video for you when you're doing research or using any kind of peer reviewed article and doing a critique on it. The last one is what we call a work-based learning project. Now, I do want to preface that if you are not in the area of Morristown or close by, this project may not be one you want to choose because this is going to require you to work directly with either East High School in Morristown, Tennessee, or West High School in Morristown, Tennessee. And what you're going to do is you're going to be involved with students who are in what we call a work-based learning program. So this is a little different than a regular high school special education class. And what's different about it is that these high school students are in SPED programs that are coordinated with giving them not only academic skills, but also gain practical work skills. So they actually go out into work job sites, right? It gives them job related competencies, it lets them see what their passions or skills might be, and it helps prepare them for future employment. They also do additional things such as those life task skills that they need, like how do you cook something on the stove? How do you wash laundry? Um, just learning those skills, social skills, things that's going to help them be more independent. So, those life based skills they need so they can be more independent. So, what your job is going to be is you're going to work and complete a minimum of 6 hours doing hands on engagement with one of those 2 schools. Now, it's a little bit more open with these 6 hours. Now, I do want to preface that these 6 hours cannot be 6 hours from your service learning. This is an addition to your service learning. Okay. Um, so, what I mean by that is this is going to be separate, right? So, this will not be your service learning. What you're going to do is you'll work with them in the classroom, or you could even accompany these students to their job sites, but you will do a log and a reflection. But I do want to note, please consider this heavily before you choose to do this because this is a commitment. And when you sign up to participate, you have to show up when you are supposed to be there. Um, it's this great opportunity for you to not only gain more experience in a different way, if you will, but also it's a great networking opportunity. Think about it like a job interview. These people could be your future employers or help you making networks to get another job or employed in the future. So when you were here, essentially when you do your 6 hours you can do it, all at one time, which a lot of people prefer to get a whole day and fill it out, or they can do maybe 3 hours one day and then come back another 3 hours. They'll really work with you on their schedule. Now, I do have the contact information below where you will reach out. So at East High School, Leanne Manus is the East High School work-based learning teacher. And then at West High, you have Lacey Price, and their school emails are there. So you will have to get in contact with them. And also, please include me on the email if you are interested, and email me as well so I can kind of give you more information and we can talk through this. Um, that gives you an idea of what you would be doing as some of the job sites. Remember, these change. Here's life skills, academic skills. And then also, if you are interested, we also sometimes have special events. I know we have one coming up in February where greenhouse East High is going to visit the greenhouse and work with the greenhouse here on campus. So there's lots of opportunities for us to be able to try to do some special events. It changes based on on the semester. I know in the fall we did the Special Olympics. So just reach out if you would like opportunities like that as well, because that could be one way to get your 6 hours. Now, you will have to keep a log and there will be a reflection paper. The only pre-project course paperwork you have to do is you'll already have your background check and liability insurance in place, so that's not really going to be an issue. The thing is, when I call required documentation, in addition to that, is signing a picture release form because sometimes pictures get taken, and then also that's the talent release form. And then you have one stating that you will be doing something outside of Water State as a student. So it's just a form you'll have to sign. So that's what we mean by pre-project paperwork. Additional notes, this is also worth 40 points. So this would be the choice-based learning project. This would be your choice if you choose this. You will not do the other two. Again, you have to provide your own transportation to East or West High School or the special event location if you choose that. These cannot be combined with your service learning hours. It is a separate requirement. You do have to be cleared, just like you do with service learning, before you can just begin your hours, even if you contacted the teachers. Also, you have to complete the hours and submit the paper and turn in a signed log. If you don't do this, then you get a 0 on the assignment, okay? There is a rubric that tells you how I'm going to grade you for this assignment or this project, so please make sure you would look at that. Also, in this section here, you're going to see the sign-in log sheet. I give you directions on how to do that, and then this is your work-based learning reflection that you will complete this paper, okay? Think of this almost kind of like a mini journal because this is your reflection. Um, what were your key takeaways during this project working with the community? So, what were your thoughts going into it? Um, your assumptions about it. Then you will start getting into the impact you made on the community and the connections. And here's some guided questions. Then you're going to do personal growth and perspective, like analyzing what you learned about yourself through this experience, and then discuss any challenges or anything you might have overcame or problem solving abilities. So I want you to write this in paper format. I do want it to be paragraph. So you can label it prologue, you'll write your paragraph, community impact, connection, write your paragraph, APA format. So just as you've done the others. Okay, so please reach out if you're interested in that one as soon as possible so we can start the communication and get that going. All right, this is a long video, but I just wanted to walk you through all of the projects. All right, please reach out if you have questions. And don't forget to look at the calendar so you can see when these assignments are due. All right, until next time, take care.